When I left Facebook, I was making roughly $1.5 million a year
Because of ESOP.
because of ESOPs, yeah.
He made about $1 million every year from his ESOPs. Like, what is your number with Uber?
Roughly about the same, or maybe a little bit higher than
A
that.
little higher. Okay.
Yeah. The only reason I was able to be successful at Uber, work there for 6 years, is because
I didn't study computer engineering. Alright, I studied CFA, accounting degree, or arts, or mechanical engineer. Now, how do I sort of evolve myself for this future?
If you look at the business leaders in some of the tech orgs, it's not like they did a computer science degree. Eric Schmidt doesn't go and write code every day.
So basically, understanding how tech works for business is the need of the hour.
If you look at the top 50 companies or top 20 companies in the US, most of them are tech companies. If you look at the top 20 companies in China, valuation-wise, again, tech companies.
I mean, the top 2 tech companies of US is bigger than the whole country of India.
Yeah.
Everybody in the country wants to get into IIM and IITs because that's where the top engineering and business talent is created. But if I were to ask you, what is wrong with these institutions? Today's episode is all about what sort of career paths and choices that we should make to become rich as quick as possible. We have Mr. Anshuman and Mr. Bhavik. You are the CEO and you are the Senior Vice President from Scaler. Thank you so much for coming here on the show.
our pleasure. Thank you so much for inviting us.
So you're currently valued at $700 million, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah,
The
that's
company.
correct. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And you guys have raised around $70 million, if I'm not wrong.
$76 million.
76. That's about 500 crores.
Yeah.
What is your journey? I mean, are you financially independent?
I made the most amount of money, which made me financially independent from ESOPs of Facebook.
Okay.
When I joined, like Facebook was not a public company.
Right.
In fact, I was amongst the first hires that Facebook did directly from India. For
So
anybody
in
who's
your
listening to
case, what sort of wealth your ESOPs generated for you?
this. When I left Facebook, I was making roughly $1 to $1.5 million a year
Because of ESOPs.
because of ESOPs. Yeah. So my base salary was $200,000 when I left. But there was an additional $1 million because of ESOPs that I was earning
Damn.
per year.
And they're buying it back.
Yeah, I mean, so Facebook was public by the time I left.
So it was already there in the stock market.
It was already there in the stock market. If I would
Damn.
have wanted, I could have sold it.
So you became financially free.
Yeah.
My God. Okay. So for the purpose of our audience here, can you tell us what an ESOP is?
The quick and easy way to understand that is that I'm working for a company. The company is giving me some amount of ownership in the company, right?
Meaning it's giving you equity.
It's giving you equity. If I'm going to make 40 lakhs per year, it is impossible that I'm going to be spending all of that 40 lakhs.
Correct.
I'm going to have some amount of savings. Now, I can keep that saving in a bank, or I can invest in a different company, or I can continue to keep it in the same company that I have. You believe that this company is going to become significantly bigger than what it is today. Then if you just do pure maths, it makes sense to have ownership. I mean, have that money as part of ownership in the company, because that's when your wealth is going to get multi-folds very, very quickly.
So that's what you did. So Bhavik, what is your journey? I mean, are you financially independent?
Luckily, yes.
Okay. Why would you say luckily?
I landed a gig with Uber.
So, it's nice for you to call Uber a gig. It's sounding very refreshing. You sound like a sobo guy.
So I think often you, like I said, right place, right time.
Yeah.
Luck has a role to play as well.
So what did you study?
I did my engineering in telecommunications. My first job paid me 3.2 lakh rupees
Per month.
per year.
Okay.
Per year at a company called Atos Origin, which
Okay.
was an IT services company out of Andheri East. All I was given was write this piece of code to solve this problem, and I was doing that blindly without asking questions at that point of time. When I started asking questions, that's when I realized I need an MBA degree. So I went abroad, did my MBA in General Management and Finance.
Did you give the GMAT?
I get the GMAT.
How much did you score?
690.
Okay.
Yeah. I got some decent admits, but I chose an institution which is called University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. Simply because one is a public school, so it was much cheaper. It was about $25,000 per year in MBA fee, which is actually extremely cheap compared to most top institutions.
Usually it's about $100,000.
$100,000. So it's like 1/4 the price. On top of that, they offered me a scholarship of about $5,000. So my cost came down to $20,000 only. I ended up actually joining Ernst & Young. And then my first salary was straight a $6-figure salary. It was $100,000.
So you made your money back within a year?
I paid off my entire loan in 6 months.
So how did you get the gig at Uber with just like 4 to 5 years of work experience?
So serendipitously, honestly, I think it's a combination of what my profile was on LinkedIn. So in many ways, if they had a checklist of what they were looking for to shortlist someone for an interview, I met all the key points of it.
So that's how you
Has been a founder, has been an MBA grad, has been an engineer, and so on and so forth. Worked in the US. And Uber had a heavy skew on ESOPs. So they were very clear on the pay, we were going to pay you lower than market standards. So I took that bet and said, okay, you know what? I will take more ESOPs and I'll take lower on salary.
So, but like your ESOPs, finally, how much money did that end up becoming for you?
It led to enough for me to move back to South Bombay, buy an apartment there.
Come on, you were living in US and then you moved to
US, I was a student. I was on student loan.
Okay.
So I couldn't pay for my own education. My father couldn't afford my education. I didn't take a penny from my father.
No, like he made about $1 million every year from his ESOPs. Like, what was your number with Uber?
Roughly about the same, or maybe a little bit higher than that.
A little higher. Okay.
Yeah. Because I think Uber also grew exponentially. So I joined Uber when Uber was only valued at $250 million, $258 million. I remember the number when
Today
I joined
it's
them.
close to 40,
Today it's close to $70 billion.
$70 billion.
Right?
You
So
still have them or you've already...
I still have some of them.
Interesting.
The only reason I was able to be successful at Uber, work there for 6 years, is because I was a business person who had an understanding of technology and I could add value there. Right? That exposure came to me because I went abroad. Today, if there was, an institution out there that gave me that exposure at that and had the ecosystem around it that US did back then, if they can say that I have this ecosystem and I'll give you that exposure, I would choose India. Today, I don't see, unfortunately, a lot of institutions having that ecosystem around them while giving the education that I think will give me the exponential returns.
No, I want you to kind of comment on, for the audience who's watching over here, how to choose between going outside India and staying back in India from a career and making money point of view.
See, again, I think personal choice and my personal choice actually differs on two aspects. One, are you very ambitious of trying to build something? I would say this is the best place to come and build. You got 1.4 billion people. You have insane number of problems in this country. Incredible amount of opportunities to build. Stay here. If you're someone looking for a happy-go-lucky life, maybe going abroad and settling there is a good option for you.
I think in general, if wealth is being generated in a country, not only the business owners, but even, let's say, early employees, etc., everybody sort of ends up generating a lot of wealth. I believe, like, again, India is at the same cusp which US was in 2001. The period of 2001 to 2010 actually generated a lot of millionaires in the US.
Yep.
I believe that's going to happen in India as well.
I personally feel the number one problem in India today is lack of quality educational institutions, because we keep bragging about India as the youngest country in the world. We have 1.4 billion people, but 90% of them, which is more than 100 crore people, are making less than 1 lakh per annum. You just have your IITs and IIMs, and the rest of them just go to tier 2, tier 3 colleges.
I think what the reason for that, I think, is also because you automatically, through those degrees and through that education, you end up in places which are deeper problems to solve, which lead to higher outcomes in terms of earnings as well.
So if you look at the Indian landscape today, right, ever since I've been a kid, what I've been told is become an engineer. And then after I became an engineer, become a MBA. Any reason why these are the career paths like engineering and MBA?
Fundamentally, two reasons. One is if you look at how the world is shaping up, in a way, tech is transforming every single sector in the country, in the world. And hence, people who are at the center of it, they become more and more important, and hence they start making a lot of money, which is what is happening with software engineering and AI and ML.
Now, you at Scaler in the last 5 years have done something very phenomenal. You guys have prepared alternative education programs for people to have a second chance at building a career in tech. Like, for example, me, I took mechanical engineering because my mom was like, my sister took software engineering, you become mechanical engineer so that we diversify our risk. But it turned out to be a shitty decision because mechanical engineers make 4 lakh per annum, and I got to know that in the second year of my engineering. So now I'm going to ask you a very controversial question.
Sure.
Everybody in the country wants to get into IIM and IITs because that's where the top engineering and business talent is created. But if I were to ask you, what is wrong with these institutions today?
Today, when it comes to IITs, in fact, some IIMs as well, the curriculum does not sit very well with what is needed in the real world. A lot of IITs and IIMs haven't delivered.
Okay.
What I mean by that is, if you again look at the Stanfords and MITs of the world, a lot of really, really large companies came out of those institutes. And I think there are some corrections that might be required. There's some enhancement that might be required.
So, like, what does a Stanford have that an IIT doesn't have? And what does a Harvard have that an IIM doesn't have?
the curriculum and what is being taught is actually in sync with, let's say, what a Facebook or a Google would want. A Facebook or Google would run, let's say, a research lab inside Stanford. For example, Mark Zuckerberg, he would go every Sunday to Stanford for a Sunday school, startup school that he would conduct. Now, that is the kind of exposure that Stanford students had, which is why they were always building something or the other. That today is missing because we evaluate our institutes on which institute gets us the best job.
Like, for example, here, Mukesh Ambani is not going to IIMA and teaching.
Yeah.
Or talking about how his business is evolving.
Exactly. Today, academia and the industry sits far apart in our country, where they should be actually intermingled. Companies should be telling that, hey, here is the kind of talent that we need, and please prepare this talent for us in the next 1 year.
I mean, that is the reason why most people in India say that whatever I learned in college was not applicable in my work.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
See, I think the curriculum that's happened has become so much driven by textbooks or by theory and less integration. See, they've taken almost a stance of that I'm above what everyone tells me, and hence I will teach what I think is right.
Correct.
Even though the industry has moved in a whole different direction altogether. Why are they not talking to the industry, understanding what a Flipkart requires? What does a Swiggy require? What does a Zomato require? What does a Zerodha require? Just like back then, they should talk to a Facebook or Google, etc. in the US. And why aren't we building talent or changing our curriculum, adapting to the changing India and the kind of jobs
why
are coming?
They're not doing that?
I think multiple reasons. I think one, the cost of changing curriculum for these institutions is really high. Right? When you're changing a curriculum, you have to come up with the entire structure for the curriculum as well. Maybe infrastructural investments. Then you have to bring in professors, ideally from the industry, which they're not allowed to because of the regulations that they have to follow also, that come from the industry who can teach that concept. Or the existing professors have to upskill themselves to the latest technologies, but they're not able to upskill themselves because they're not exposed to the real world.
There's a lot of bureaucracy to sort of work with these educational institutions to create these kind of structures that create ready-made employees for our companies.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, and the other thing is how CMU or Stanford basically hires its teaching talent. So a lot of professors are hired on a tenure when they had been building companies themselves earlier. They come from the industry to teach, where they stay in the labs for 10 years. And in a way, they basically, if they create something in the lab, then they get certain royalties from that. So there is this, I mean, both sides. Right? You're attracting talent from the industry, which is teaching in your colleges.
Right.
As well as you're sitting very closely with the companies, where companies are willing to sponsor projects inside because they know you've delivered in the past.
So not all of us can, afford to go abroad and into these world-class institutions outside of India. That's a dream that will not be realized for millions of Indians. Yeah. So there's a need of that to create something like that in India.
Exactly.
And that is the vision that you guys started with, right?
Yeah.
So what have you guys started, which is so revolutionary that it's going to change the country, if I may put it that way?
Sure. I mean, it's too early to say we'll revolutionize the country, but I'll maybe talk a little bit about what is needed and then what are we doing in that direction, right? If you look at the top 50 companies or top 20 companies in the US, most of them are tech companies.
Correct. Right.
If you look at the top 20 companies in China, valuation-wise, again, tech companies.
I mean, the top 2 tech companies of US is bigger than the whole country of India. Right?
Yeah.
The company that you work at, I think it's Facebook. That's almost 75% of India.
Yeah.
Right? So what you're saying is that the future of India requires very good talent, which is at the intersection of business and tech.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of people now say that, hey, I didn't study computer engineering.
Sure.
All right. I studied, CFA, accounting degree, or arts, or mechanical engineer. Now, how do I sort of evolve myself for this future? So how do you look at that?
The same example of China and US, if you look at the business leaders in some of the tech orgs, it's not like they did a computer science degree. However, they were aware of how to leverage tech, which means Eric Schmidt doesn't go and write code every day.
Who's Eric Schmidt?
Eric Schmidt is the CEO or was the CEO of Google prior to Sundar Pichai.
Okay. So basically understanding how tech works for business is the need of the hour.
Yeah.
Right.
In general, like one thing that might have to change in our mindset is today in India, you have a problem, you throw people at the problem. I'll hire 10 more people. However, if you look at like resource constrained systems, the first thought process is how do I build a system that can automate this process? So some of that shift has to happen if we have to build for the world, because that is what the outside world needs.
Now, the biggest question that people have is, job milega kya? Because the advantage that these incumbent institutions have is, regardless of whether the education is good or bad, they have proper tie-ups with these companies. So there is a proper funnel of people going into these companies.
Yeah.
Right.
So when you are trying to solve something, let's say you create the most disruptive educational program, but how do you kind of guarantee jobs for the people who get into it?
Yeah, I mean, we also have the same relationship with the employers, but in fact, like maybe tighter integration with the employers.
Can you elaborate? Why?
Yeah. Let me actually break it down with respect to the programs that we have right
Sure.
now. And again, like not to suggest that Scaler is doing this, but it's also a template for others. Right?
Yeah.
Today we have 3 different programs. One is somebody who is looking at a second chance to become a software engineer or a techie again. There's an online 1-year program which is called, which is Scaler. So you have a software engineering program and you have a data science program. The second program that we have is an undergraduate program which is called Scaler School of Technology, which is for technology education.
That's
which is
4-year program.
4-year program for computer science.
This is like a proper replacement to your IIT's computer science program or whatever college, engineering college in the country.
Yeah.
Okay. What is the other program that you have?
The final, another program that we just recently launched, maybe you should talk about it, is the Scaler School of Business, which is also a residential program.
Yeah, sure. So Scaler School of Business was addressing the problem that Anshuman spoke
I
about
like
earlier.
this business accent is finally coming.
Which was at the intersection of tech and business, right? The idea essentially is to make sure that we create business leaders that have a deep understanding of technology as well, but also have the understanding of the core fundamentals of business, teaching them concepts and how they should be taught in the real world.
So this is like a 2-year MBA program?
It's an 18-month MBA program. You can say it's an 18-month MBA. It's a postgraduate program in management and technology.
So it's like a proper replacement of, or
It's
a competitor to IIM.
IIM, ISB, etc. Absolutely. Our emphasis and our indexing is more on how do we get you more and more exposure to real world problem solving. So we keep sourcing real world projects from startups in India, from large companies in India, and we make our students work on those projects. So they work as consultants to these companies itself.
So right now I have a company, 1% Club.
Right.
I have a lot of problems going on in my different
Please
business
send it
units.
to us.
Please send it to
I can
us.
send it to you and you will get your
We'll get a group of
to
students
solve it.
come together and they'll work with.
Do I have to pay for it?
So some are paid, some are not
I
paid.
have to pay?
Yes, absolutely. The
I have to
companies-
pay and then you guys solve it for me through your students.
Right. Yes.
Got it.
And some are unpaid as well, depending on the problem statement and what you're offering.
I mean, for example, like on the paid part, right? If all of the projects that we've done with the government of India, it's been unpaid.
Okay.
Yeah.
So government of India is also coming to you saying, this is my problem. Ask your students to solve it
So
for
the
me.
recent thing that the government of India launched, Bhashini, the AI-powered translation for Indian languages, our students actually worked on multiple projects
Wow.
on that as well.
You guys have very powerful contacts. Nice.
Yes, so that's one example. A second example of this is we have something called an innovation lab, the Scaler Innovation Lab on campus itself. Think of it as an innovation lab as a co-working space along with different zones created for different kind of technologies that you could work on or business ideas you could work on. Drone lab, robotics lab, AI ML lab.
So you guys have a actual physical
It's
center.
actually a physical space. Yeah, it's a physical campus.
Okay.
Scaler School of Business is in Electronic City in Bangalore. But what we do in the innovation lab is that students then work on a project. Let's say you have a business idea. I'm a student of Scaler School of Business. I have an idea of, let's say, in the logistics space, right? Something to do with transportation, maybe a new way to approach it. I can then work with the students of Scaler School of Technology, which is also the same campus, build that out as an MVP, take it to market, get guidance, let's say, from companies like Uber in the transportation. So I can get the leader of Uber on campus to give you guidance, mentor you. Is your idea going to work? What changes you should make? Think of this aspect. Have you done this customer research? Have you understood that this way of go-to-market might work better or pricing strategy might work better? Take it to market, generate revenue, even get a chance to then pitch it to top VCs and investors.
Wow.
Because we luckily, between me, Anshuman, and a group of folks who are behind the scenes, have a really strong network of investors that we've worked with ourselves or have a good relationship with. We bring them on campus, you pitch your idea.
You're telling me that students can raise money from VCs in your college?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
Some students, obviously.
Some
not
students,
all.
of course.
Obviously, not everybody
Yeah.
can
So
do it.
what through this, what you've done is not only you've understood all aspects of business, from idea to product development, to marketing, to sales, to financial planning, customer research. You've understood all the facets, but the real way, actually putting out a real product, and you've got feedback directly from the top investors or other founders or leaders of top companies coming on campus and giving this feedback as well.
Wow.
I think just one thing I'll add is that the campus is co-located at the same place where the technology school also is. Where the,
By design.
By design.
that they get to make friends in tech as well.
Yeah.
Because that's a big problem right now.
Yeah, so
Because
if you want to build, let's say, something which is deep tech, then you can probably work with the students to get that built out.
So you have your in-house tech team, you have your in-house design team, product team, marketing team that you can work with, and mentors.
So you can find your co-founders in your campus.
Yeah, that's the idea. Like, how do you enable people to create products and businesses which involve tech, which today a lot of non-tech founders shy away from because you don't have those resources today.
Correct.
But how do you bring them together so that you're thinking of businesses from a tech-first standpoint?
Correct.
And then you have the resources to build it out. Even if you fail, that's okay because you learned building a business in the process. If you go to jobs, you'll perform better because you'll know how to, let's say, automate a bunch of your processes using tech.
Interesting.
Which makes for better bottom lines, profits later.
Ultimately, those business leaders who may not have the understanding of tech as much are likely to be less efficient, which basically means you will have others who will far pass you very quickly because they're going to be 10x more efficient applying some of this understanding, which you will not have otherwise.
So, like, I've not heard something like this. Like, is there something similar like this in the country, or would you say that you guys are the first ones to do something like this?
Yeah, I think the intersection of being practical first and bringing both business and tech together, that hasn't happened in the past. There is no other equivalence of this. There have been other players who've been trying to become practical first, which is how do I teach you business by doing business.
Correct.
However, like that plus making sure you are co-located with tech talent and you can build tech first businesses, that's not happened before.
Can you tell us some of the insane salary growths that you have seen at Scaler? Can you give some examples, anecdotal evidence of what was the salary of a person before and what it became after and what companies they went to?
Yeah, I mean, I think before I tell the salary, because I want to make sure people are doing it for the right reason. Look, the world rewards you for the amount of value you add to the world. You basically get back some percentage of that value, right?
Absolutely.
So in a way, if you're doing tech work, which is creating a lot of impact on the ground, you get paid in proportion. We've seen cases where, let's say there was an engineer who helped Ola launch in a different country, or let's say there was an engineer who went to Udaan and let's say opened a new vertical for them. Now these guys, they start making salaries which are, again, not setting wrong expectation, but like which are closer to 1 crore rupees. And this is somebody who has like 5-6 years of experience.
When you're saying crore, are you also looking at ESOPs or just the cash component?
I mean, so majority of it is cash component.
So how much, like 60-70 lakhs would be
60-70 lakhs would be cash component. There would be some proportion of ESOPs as well.
Interesting. Do you think I should join?
You should join as an instructor.
No, because if I were 24, 25 today, I would definitely consider this as an option because this was not there when I was evaluating my options. And it was simply either IIM or go outside of India.
Right.
And if I could have the opportunity to stay back in India and have this kind of an education program, I would have definitely taken it. So good that it is finally coming to the country, and good that millions of people get to, understand this, what's happening in the country and how they should chart out their career. Because a lot of people don't even know what to do with their career, right? They don't have clarity. They're just running after, highest paying job, IIM release this kind of salary or whatever, right? So I hope this was a very, very informative session for you guys. I personally learned a lot. Thank you so much for flying down here to Mumbai and then you coming from Sobo and sharing your words of wisdom with us. And thank you so much, guys, for watching till the end. And I'll see you in the next one.